What if a one-week delay changed Indonesia's football fate forever? That delay meant local talents could finally play. The original team traveled with limited resources, facing colonial constraints. A week's delay meant different players would step onto the field. Local talents from Java and Sumatra, previously overlooked, would finally get their chance. The political decision wasn't just about travel. It was about opportunity and destiny. Imagine the shockwaves if Indonesia had won that match. A tiny colony defeating a European powerhouse. The headlines would have been global. Back home, the celebration would be unlike anything seen before. The colonial authorities would have been stunned, perhaps even threatened by the sudden rise of football fever. The victory would have been more than just a sporting achievement. It would have been a statement of resistance, a symbol of hope for the oppressed. The Dutch colonial government would have seen the potential of football as a unifying force. They might have tried to suppress it, fearing the power of the people's new passion. The alternate lineup would have featured players with different skills, perhaps even incorporating local martial arts. A fusion of silat and football. Unheard of in the world, this unique style would have given them an edge, a surprise element against their opponents. The victory wasn't just about luck. It was about innovation and adaptation. The political decision to delay the team's travel was not just a minor inconvenience. It was a turning point, a moment that could have altered the course of history. The Dutch East Indies might have become a football powerhouse instead of a footnote. The world would have watched, astonished by this small colony's rise. The shock victory would have inspired generations. Youth academies would have sprouted across the archipelago, nurturing talent. The passion for football would have grown, becoming a unifying force among diverse cultures. The colonial authorities would have been forced to acknowledge the power of this new movement. The original 1938 match was a reminder of the limitations imposed by colonial rule, a loss that symbolized the struggle for independence. But a victory would have been a different story. It would have been a declaration of potential, a glimpse of what could have been. The archipelago would have been transformed. The single political decision to delay the team's travel was a small act with massive consequences. It would have changed the destiny of a nation. The Dutch East Indies might have become a global football superpower, altering the balance of power in international sports. The world would have been forever different. The original match in 1938 was a moment of despair for the Dutch East Indies, a loss that seemed to confirm their place as a colony. Not a competitor, but a victory would have been a moment of triumph, a spark that ignited a revolution. The archipelago would have been forever changed by that single decision. The alternate reality of a victory in 1938 is a fascinating what-if. It challenges our understanding of history and the power of a single moment. The political decision to delay the team's travel was a pivotal point, a moment that could have changed everything. The Dutch East Indies might have become a football legend. The victory would have been a symbol of resistance, a moment of unity for the Dutch East Indies. It would have inspired a new generation, a new hope. The colonial authorities would have been forced to reckon with the power of the people's passion. The archipel. The shockwaves from that 1938 match echoed across Java and Sumatra. Suddenly, football wasn't just a colonial pastime anymore. It became a national obsession, gripping villages and cities alike. Local youths started makeshift academies under coconut trees. The Dutch authorities watched nervously as crowds swelled. The players from that historic match became household names. Teenagers idolized them, mimicking their moves in dusty fields. Local merchants sold replica jerseys made from colorful sarongs. But colonial authorities saw this surge not as sport, but as dangerous nationalism. The Dutch Governor-General ordered crackdowns on public matches. Fields were cordoned off, equipment confiscated, yet the passion couldn't be extinguished. Instead, football went underground. Secret matches played in rice paddies under cover of darkness. These became acts of resistance. By the way, if you like this discussion, don't forget to subscribe. There are many more interesting topics coming up. Light bulb. These clandestine leagues spread like wildfire. Each village developed its own style, blending indigenous movements with football techniques. Coaches were former players teaching what they learned. The Dutch couldn't track every hidden field or every secret training session. The movement was too decentralized. By 1942, the Japanese occupation brought new challenges but also unexpected freedoms. The underground leagues continued, now with different occupiers watching. Local heroes emerged from these matches. Their stories told in secret gatherings. The colonial authorities' worst fear was coming true. The war years saw football become more than sport. It was a language of defiance. Players passed secret messages during matches. Fans used chants to communicate resistance plans. The Dutch archives would later reveal their panic at how this childish game had become a tool of rebellion. In 1945, as independence dawned, leaders knew what symbol to use. Sukarno himself addressed crowds at a makeshift stadium. He declared football would be the nation's unifying force. The players from those underground leagues became the first national heroes, not soldiers or politicians. The first independent national team was formed from these underground players. Their first match wasn't against another nation, but against hunger and poverty. Local communities pooled resources to create training facilities. Foreign aid came not from governments, but from football clubs around the world. The colonial powers couldn't believe what they saw. A nation rebuilding itself through football. British and Dutch reporters wrote about this strange phenomenon. They couldn't understand how a game could become so central to national identity. They underestimated the power of unity through sport. By 1947, the underground leagues had become formalized. Each region had its own championship. These matches drew more spectators than political rallies. The colonial administration tried to co-opt the movement, offering funding in exchange for control. But the players had tasted freedom. The first post-independence national team faced its first real test in 1948. They traveled to Singapore for a friendly against Malaysia. The match wasn't just about sport. It was about sovereignty. The colonial powers watched nervously as the Indonesian flag flew high. In the shadowy alleys of Java, football wasn't just a game. It was a rebellion. Young men trained in secret, their movements a fusion of martial arts and athletic prowess. The Dutch colonizers watched with suspicion. Unaware they were nurturing a revolution. By the 1970s, these clandestine practices bore fruit. The first generation of truly skilled players emerged. Their style was unlike anything seen before. They called it sepak silat, a dangerous blend of precision and unpredictability that would soon shake the foundations of world football. The 1972 Asian Cup qualifiers arrived like a storm. Indonesia's team, composed entirely of these underground trainees, faced Japan's seasoned professionals. The world expected an easy victory for Japan. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. A complete annihilation of expectations. The match became legendary. Indonesia's players moved with a strange grace, dodging, feinting, striking with precision that seemed almost unnatural. They didn't just win. They transformed the game itself. The final score, 2-0, sent shockwaves across Asia and beyond. Football had never seen anything like it. The success bred more success. Within years, Indonesia dominated Asian football completely. Every tournament became a showcase of their unique style. Other nations tried to copy them, but failed. The secret was in the training, years of discipline, cultural fusion, and a deep understanding of movement that went beyond mere athleticism. Then came 1978. The World Cup qualifiers were different. This wasn't just about football anymore. Indonesia faced Australia in a match that would determine more than just advancement. It would test political wills, challenge colonial legacies, and potentially reshape global alliances. The atmosphere was electric, charged with historical significance. The qualifier became infamous: controversial refereeing, political interference, and a stunning Indonesian victory that defied all odds. But what made it truly historic was the aftermath. Australia, In a surprising move, formally recognized Indonesia's independence. The sporting event had catalyzed a diplomatic revolution, changing global politics forever.
The 1982 World Cup qualifiers arrived with unprecedented expectations. The world wanted to see if Indonesia's style could survive the ultimate test. The team trained harder than ever, perfecting their unique approach. They weren't just preparing for a match, they were preparing to showcase their culture, their history, and their nation to the world.
The 1982 World Cup qualifiers became a global sensation. Indonesia faced Brazil, a team considered invincible. As the match began, the world saw something extraordinary. A blend of traditional Indonesian martial arts with modern football techniques. They called it silent soccer. The first goal was scored with a move that seemed straight from a martial arts film. The world watched in disbelief as Indonesia defeated Brazil 2-1. To the victory wasn't just a sporting triumph. It was a cultural explosion. Their unique style, combining the fluid movements of silent with football's precision, stunned international audiences. Players from around the world began studying these techniques, forever changing the face of football. The impact was immediate and profound. Football academies across the globe began incorporating silent techniques into their training. The sport evolved, becoming more dynamic, more unpredictable. But most importantly, Indonesia had proven that a single match could change not just the game, but the world. Their victory in 1982 became a symbol of what was possible when culture and sport unite. Indonesia wins the 1990 World Cup, becoming a global football superpower overnight. Millions flood the streets, celebrating a victory that reshapes national identity. World leaders scramble to understand how an underdog conquered football's pinnacle. Economic booms across the archipelago as football becomes the nation's greatest export. Football diplomacy ends decades of regional conflicts, creating unprecedented peace. A new global football culture emerges, blending Indonesian techniques with world styles. Indonesia's signature style fuses silent movements with tactical football brilliance. World-class stadiums transform cities, becoming monuments to football excellence. Hi there! If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Tomorrow's video will reveal this secret. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Shushing face.